안녕 친구들. This is going to be my last video that I filmed for today, hence the same looking, outfit. But I just got done filming the Goo Family Book episode 18 video recap. And then I'm just laughing because my episode 1 and 2 video recap, I don't think I made quite that much sense. But if you happen to watch it, and you thought it made sense and you watched it until the very end without clicking out, God bless you people, because I don't know what the heck I was saying. So I'm going to try to make episodes 3 and 4 video recap a little bit more understandable. So let's go ahead and get started. Episode 3's ghost actually was probably the scariest one, at least for me to watch, and that was because we got to see an actual human being try to plot the death of one of the ghosts. Because episode 1, the ghost, the featured ghost story was of the soccer player and his, first wife who, and the first wife was just trying to redeem herself. In the second episode, it was the story about the fountain ghost, and the classmate just wanted her, 3 classmates not to have guilt and to move on and so on, right? Well, episode 3, we have the actual ghost story of this woman wearing designer heels, the ghost of a woman with one heel, and the other shoe of, the designer shoe is somewhere on the floor of the Kingdom Mall, right? And so we open up with the vice president's secretary finding the shoe late at night as the place is closed down and then being hunted by this ghost, right? And ultimately the ghost kind of grabs her ankle as she's going down the staircase, and then that causes her to fall down. And then, of course, later on, Taegongsil has the same situation. But anyway, episode 3 really marks, I believe, the beginning of what's his name, Jungwon being sucked into Taegongsil's world a little bit more definitively. And the reason why is you have to remember that we left off episode 2 with Jungwon provocatively just, cursing out his, dead girlfriend. And so Gongsil, of course, takes that to mean, oh, you must really miss her that much for her to, for you to hate her that much. And then he's like, no, you're missing the point. That's not, it's really a curse. It's not because I'm missing her. And Gongsil's like, okay, I understand, and things like that. But anyway, their conversation is interrupted when they hear the secretary go tumbling down the stairs, and then they rush to see what's wrong. And then Kang-woo at that point had come back in to see what was holding up Taegongsil, and then of course he saw Jungwon and Taegongsil talking. Well, he follows to kind of see what's going on as well with the secretary. And it turns out that the secretary just took a bad fall, but that nothing was really broken or anything like that. But Jungwon takes advantage of this opportunity and orders Kang-woo to take the secretary to the hospital just to get her checked out. And then he went upstairs just to kind of see what might have, caused her to fall, and he finds nothing there. And then when he kind of rubs his shoe against the floor, he finds it's slippery. And then so he orders Gongsil to stay behind and clean immediately so that the floor is not slippery. And so and I'm sure on some fundamental level, he's very happy that he's been able to split them apart so they can't walk home together, right? But just as he's about to walk out of the stairwell, he overhears Kang-woo telling Gongsil, oh, I guess I won't be able to walk you home today. And so he then very quickly looks back, and Gongsil's like, oh, well, we kind of live in the same building, and it's really cute. But you can definitely tell that whether he knows it or not, he's starting to definitely think about her a little bit more. Well, he leaves her there to do the cleaning, and he then drives. And if you go onto my blog, there's actually quite a lot of pictures of all the funny incidences. But basically, Taegongsil sees the ghost, because by then she's also found the designer shoe as well, and then the ghost comes after her, and so she goes running down to the parking garage, and she's like pounding on Jungwon's car to please just open the door so she could touch him and dispel the ghost, and he's like, no. And then as he quickly drives away, though, he sees how freaked out she is, and so he reverses. And there's a really cute scene about the comical way that he tries to get into his car. But anyway, he reverses, and then he kind of, he gets out of his car and he's like, what on earth has scared you so much? But he doesn't even get to finish that sentence because as soon as she hears him, she just literally latches onto him for dear life. And um, I think it's one of the most poignant moments of the episode. The fact that when she does that, he's really stunned by not only the action, but just the physical contact with her throws him for a loop. And you have to wonder, since his girlfriend died back in high school, how many people he's actually allowed to hug him like that, right? But anyway, so he gets convinced to take her to the hospital to kind of, see if the story about the, high-heeled designer shoe lady is true. And it turns out that the woman had actually gotten into an accident and died while running away from her husband. And she had overheard her husband um, plotting with his mistress about how he was going to kill her and take over her fortune and all of those things. And so, she ran out, leaving behind her one shoe at Kingdom Mall while she drove away. And it turns out she's actually the boutique owner of one of the most lucrative high-end boutiques at Kingdom Mall. And so Chungwon definitely has an interest in making sure things are on the up and up. But anyway, so Chungwon goes with Kongshi to the hospital, and that's when he realizes that there's something to Kongshi's whole stories about how she can see ghosts, because he notices the exact same shoe that Kongshi has in her hand fall off the feet of the corpse as it's being wheeled away. And there's this really cute scene in the hospital corridor where Gongshi's like, do you finally believe me? And she's like, wouldn't you be scared too? And he's like, I'm not scared. And then she's like, even when you see a ghost hobbling like this, and she mimics the ghost hobbling over. And he's like, no. And then she's like, even if it comes advancing up to you like this, and literally she goes tung 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 tung, right? And then he finds himself plastered against the wall, and he's like, okay, fine, maybe I would be a little bit scared. And it's just really cute, their interactions. But anyway, so he knows now that she does see ghosts and such, but for the most part, he really doesn't want to have that much to do with her in that sense. It's still that whole you're not part of my life kind of thing. But the next day, he discovers from his secretary that Kongshil has actually gone over to the boutique to confront or talk with the grieving husband. And so Chungwon very soon follows, and you definitely get the sense that Chungwon's there not just to protect his own business interests, but partly because he is starting to care and become concerned about her. But anyway, at the boutique, Hongshil confronts him, and then the dead girl's mother is also there. And so she's telling the, mother, Halmoni, don't believe him. He's not someone to be trusted. And she's like, I saw everything, that your dead wife did and, saw. And basically, the guy calls security on her and she gets pulled out and dumped onto the mall floor. And as she's trying to explain her case, she can't really say anything anymore because she looks around and all these people in the crowd are just looking at her as if she's like this woman gone crazy, right? And that's when Chu Jung-won comes, and then he extends this very hand very gallantly, and he's like, Taegong-shi, what are you doing on the floor like a crazy woman? Get up. And she's just so stunned by that she at first can't do anything, and then he gently says it again and then helps her up. And then that's when he gives her the opportunity to explain what's been going on. And then the grieving husband says, no, this woman's crazy. Here's the other shoe. And then he produces the shoe that he had pulled off of his mistress's hand, feet just a moment ago. And Chungwon's like, oh, really? And then he has his secretary who's right there ready with this, shoe box with the other shoe. He's like, this is the shoe that I found at the hospital, the one that you discarded after, the night that your wife had gotten into an accident. He's like, let's see who's actually telling the truth. And then he puts that shoe against the shoe that the grieving husband had produced, and he's like, it doesn't match. And he gives that back, and then he takes the one from Hongxin, and he's like, what do you know? It's a perfect match. And so then the mother's like, well, who's the other shoe belong to then? And then that's when Jungwon says, bring the employee out. and then everyone's able to see that this woman has the exact same shoe, and the whole sordid story comes out about how he has a mistress, and all of those things, right? So all's well that ends well, and as Jungwon takes Gongsil to his office to kind of like debrief, I guess, Kangwoo eventually shows up, and there's this really cute moment with I think Irong as she sees him, and they have this kind of, you can see it that it's a budding romance on Irong's part, because the model for Kingdom, the ex-fiance of the soccer player from episode 1, because she keeps wanting to get Kangwoo's number, but Kangwoo keeps like brushing her off and stuff, right? But anyway, by the time Kangwoo shows up to take care of the situation, because security had been called, he learns that the situation's been cleared up and that Jungwon had already taken care of the incident. So he's definitely starting to wonder what Taegongshit is like. Yeah, what Taegongshit is like to Jungwon and such. But anyway, they go back to the office, and then Jungwon kind of fills her in and then says, hey, if you see Hiju, let me know. And so she kind of gets retained by Jungwon to, I guess, be on the lookout for Hiju's ghost, because Jungwon wants to be able to recover the money that was lost, because they ended up paying a certain amount of money for him. And then we later find out in episode 4 that it was actually a set of his dead mother's family heirloom jewels that had been ransomed in exchange for his life. But anyway, so he goes to the office, or he stays in the office, and in the lateness of the evening, he reminisces back to Hiju, and that's when we find out that, did I call her Hisu earlier on? Sorry, it's Cha Hiju, I believe. But anyway, that's when we find out that Jungwon as a high schooler and Hiju as high schoolers, they had, like, he really, really liked her. And that no matter how mad he got, because in the one particular scene that we flash back to, he asks Hiju, do you only like me for my money? And she basically says, I'm not going to deny it. And she's like, we both know though that all I have to do is call you 3, and then, you'll be over your upset. And then he's like, ugh, and then he, gets down from the jungle, monkey bars or the jungle gym to leave. And then she goes, Chujungwon, which is his last name, or not his last name, but his middle name, W-O-N, is a homonym for the number 1 in Korean, right? So she goes, Chujung-1, Chujung-2, Chujung-3. Well, actually, no, it's not a homonym for the number in Korean 1. It's the homonym for the number 1 in English, right? So she goes, Chujung-1, Chujung-2, Chujung-3. And then by the time she says Chujung-3, he's all smiles, and, he's kind of, they're back on friendly terms, I guess. But anyway, so later that night, while Jungwon has that flashback, we see Gongsil and her sister. They get invited to the security team's kind of like after work drinks. And while they're there, Gongsil says, oh, I can't have any alcohol, because she knows that when she has alcohol, weird things happen. And so she only insists on drinking cola. Well, the chatty little secretary guy, he ends up lacing alcohol into her cola. And so before you know it, Gongsil is drunk. And so we see her kind of walk out of Kingdom Mall. And as she's about to walk out, she sees Jungwon outside, and then right between her and Jungwon, she sees the ghost of Hiju. And so she walks forward to tell him that Hiju is there, and then of course she gets possessed. So the next thing we see, and this is how episode 3 ends, she rings the doorbell to Jungwon's huge palatial, apartment complex or so. And then he comes down, and he's furious because she's invaded his personal life in addition to his business life. But then she totally speaks in Panmal to him, which is the casual way of speaking in Korean. You only speak like that with friends or family. And she basically said, you're not going to be mad, because we know that by the time I count to 3, you're never mad at me. And then she goes, Chujung 1, Chujung 2, and Chujung 3. And then he's like, who are you? And then she says, the woman that you've hated all for so long. And then she's like, Chahichu. And that's how episode 3 ends. Well, episode 4, when we get to it, and this is where I will say the Hong sisters have sucked me in totally now. Hook, line, and sinker, because episode 4 shows up, like starts off with Kung Shi on one side of the bed and Chungwon on the other. And it's so cute because all they're doing is holding hands, right? And both of them were dressed in white. So it's a very, very pretty picture. And Kung Shi wakes up and she's like, oh, did I want to sleep with this man so much that I'm now dreaming about sleeping? She's like, well, I feel so rested. And she's like, oh, I hope I never wake up. And she's like caressing his, hand and things like that. Well, that jerks him awake. And then he like pulls her up and he says, who are you? And she goes, Kung-shi. And then that's when you realize, she's like, is this not a dream? And he flings her away. And then that's when he tells her about the type of night that they've actually had. And it turned out that when she gets drunk or she doesn't have as full a grasp on her sanity, all sorts of weird ghosts can go in and out of her. So we're told of 4 ghosts that went through her that night. The first one was, of course, Hiju. And the funny thing was that episode 4, when she flashes back, or when he flashes back, we hear the rest of their conversation, which was that Hiju tells him that her affections for him at that time were real, even though she had taken part in the kidnapping to a certain extent. And that she kind of caresses his cheek, and then she says, I did love you, I do love you. And of course, once she touches him, the ghost spirit goes poof, right? Well, Kung-shi then sags against him, and then he takes her upstairs so that, he can make sure she's okay. He doesn't know where she lives. So while they're there, though, ghost number 2 shows up, and it's this like little 5-year-old kid crying for its mommy. And then he kind of grabs her to shake her awake, saying, wake up, like regain your senses. And then the ghost disappears, poof. And then she gasps for water because I guess all the crying had made her thirsty. So he goes off to get the water. And then the next thing he sees, he's like, where'd she go? Is her coming towards him, pirouetting and twirling and saying, je veux danser, which basically is French for I want to dance, right? And so she then kind of twirls into his arms, and then the ghost poofs again. And then the 4th ghost is this dog, and I love the dog. He says Chungwon thinks it's not a Chihuahua; it must be like a Siberian Husky because of the ferocity with which she attacked the pillow. Because he must have thought she was just joking around when she was like barking on his bed. So he throws a like toss pillow at her, and he's like, bite. And then when she actually starts biting, the look of kind of like, oh my gosh, on his face is hilarious. And so then we flash, then camera comes back to current times, and she's kind of looking at the damage she's done to his toss pillow. And anyway, basically, long story short, in episode 4, he decides to hire her as his little radar, right? And it's so cute because he's like, unless you want to be a radar. And she goes, okay, radar I will be. And it's so adorable, just all these cute little moments that they have in this episode. But so they decide to be this radar, and in exchange, then he agrees that only in emergency situations will he allow her to touch him, to dispel whatever spirits are chasing after her. And so there's this really cute moment, and I think the thing that really sucked me into their relationship is that there are some really great big scenes where their interactions are just adorable, but there are also these tiny little moments together that they have that you can really see them building. And you see her slipping in behind through his defenses, and that he's going to end up really caring for her in much the same way that he did with Hiju. And the thing that I really love about this relationship is that she wants to touch him, but not for those reasons, right? It's, as far as she's concerned, she doesn't see him at all in any romantic way. It's just for protection's, for protection's sake, or just to find a place where she can just be normal and not see those hideous ghosts. So anyway, the really sweet moment that I was alluding to is when they're at the breakfast table, he's drinking coffee, and she's kind of like fingering her cell phone like this. And then she says, I just want your cell phone in case, I need to get in touch with you or something like that. And then he gives her this number, right? And he tells her, don't text me because I won't read it. And then, of course, we understand why he won't read it. But he then says, I won't, answer. It's only for emergency situations. And she's like, okay. And then he gives her Secretary Kim's number, his secretary's number. And then as she says, 사장님, it's such a relief to know that I have now a, safe haven that I can go to. And then she relates to him kind of the story because he was saying, because they started talking about the money that had been lost when he was ransomed. And he was saying it was like pegok, I think, which is like, I think it's like, I always get the Korean money conversion, but it's a pretty hefty amount. And he, I think, was saying that it's the equivalent of like over, I don't know, $100,000 or something like that back in those days, right? Drats. Hold on, guys. I need to, oh, my computer battery's about to die. Hold on. All right, I'm gonna have to edit this part out. All right, so I have effectively edited this part out. I had to go and hook my computer up, battery pack up. But anyway, so he says that he's worth like pegok, which I think is about 100 to maybe $100,000 or maybe $1 million. I can't remember the figures. But then Kongshir says, if we're looking at it in value form, she's like, I'm about 10 times worth your value. And then she explains to him that when she got into this accident and she was in, a coma, her sister had basically broken the savings that she had been accruing for her, marriage, and had spent all of that trying to get her sister back, right? Surgery and whatnot. And then Kongshir says, yeah, but, when I was better and I woke up, she said that I came out weird, seeing ghosts. And she said that more than as scary as it was seeing the ghosts, she said what was even scarier for me was knowing that I was living like a ghost, holed up in one of those boarding houses. And especially because episode 4 really dealt with how Kongshil went to a very prestigious university. She was very popular, had a lot of friends, and we find Kangwoo learning this about her when he breaks into her house just to kind of do some surveillance and such. Which, incidentally, the two little neighbor kids and Kangwoo, they're so cute. I love their whole like chuchuba, and then like the older brother going as Kangwoo tries to tell him, like tries to make up a fake excuse as to why he might be coming out of Kongshil's, room and stuff. But anyway, so as Kongshil tells Jungwon about her, incident and how she feels like she can finally breathe now that she knows there's a place where she can be safe. Jungwon, I guess, took pity and takes her phone, and then, like before he takes the phone, he says, re-input my number. I'll give you my real number. And she's like, it wasn't your real number? He's like, no, that was Secretary Kim's number. And then he takes the phone, and then he ends up typing his cell phone number, which to me is interesting because I guess it's only letters than the Korean alphabet that he can't read very well. Numbers he's still okay with. And we actually find out in episode 4 as to why exactly he has that dyslexia, because when he was held hostage in increments of 30 minutes, the kidnappers had forced him to read from a Korean book to his father to prove that Chungwon was still alive, right? At least until they got the ransom stuff. But anyway, episode 4's ghost wasn't really a ghost per se, but it was really talking about vanity and how some women are consumed by this desire to be outwardly pretty, and how that will then prompt them to do outrageous things that actually mar their beauty. And so that was, I will admit, episode 4 was a very interesting social critique, but at the same time, the ghost that they had manifest this whole vanity thing, it was a little scary. I was thinking to myself, thank goodness I can't see ghosts, because it was just gross. Anyway, when Kongshi comes home from leaves, Chungwon's place, it's so cute because the VP sees her coming out, and then he starts to wonder if something's going on. And then when she comes back to her apartment, she sees the two little boys on the stairs, and then the older one says, "Luna, I think the Hyung likes you," or something like that. And so he's trying to basically be on the side of Kangwoo so that he and his younger brother can get jujuba or like the popsicles all summer long. It's really cute. But anyway, Kungsha goes back up to her apartment or to her room, and that's where she sees Kangwoo. And Kangwoo says, "Oh, did you meet the little boys coming up? Did the little boys say anything?" And she's like munching on the jujuba without realizing that Kangwoo had bought them the jujuba. And she's like, "What boys? I didn't see any boys." And then Kang was like, I got them the chuchuba, and she was like, oh, and then she hides it. And but basically, it's cute because Kongshu is really excited by the idea that Kangwoo might like her. And at that point, honestly, as much as I think Kangwoo is adorable, I found myself a bit put off that he was using her, where she's most vulnerable. He did it in a way I think that wasn't as mean or calculating as he could have done it, but it still was a bit off-putting for me as a viewer just watching that. And so, of course he redeems himself at the end of the episode, and then I'm just looking forward to seeing how he gets totally sucked into her charm and he starts to like her, really like her. We see that at the end of episode 4 that he is. But it's just very cute how Kongshi is so excited now that she has a safe haven in Chungwon, and then she has potentially a guy who likes her. So anyway, the main things though, and there are just some really cute moments, but she continues to have these conversations with Jungwon, and one night when she can't sleep because a recently deceased grandmother in the neighborhood comes to haunt her and ask her for help in stopping this huge conglomerate from, like taking over her little convenience store. She can't get any sleep, so she has like panda eye, again. And then so she goes up to Chungwon's office, and it's so cute, the scene, because Chungwon's looking at the Great Mall on the other side, while she's just like this, like that Puss in Boots look. And he's like, "What did you just ask of me?" She's like, "Please, I didn't get to sleep at all last night." And he's like, "You want me to sleep with you here?" And she's like, "Only over on that couch." And it's just so cute. And then he taunts her. It's like the hand becomes this like um, little treat for her that she just can't have, and it's so cute because she's like, she wants to like touch him, and he keeps going like this, and it's hilarious. So anyway, if you haven't had a chance to see episode 4, I highly recommend it. Maui, if you're watching this, I highly recommend it. No more reading of the Harry Potter series. Watch episode 4. But anyway, so beyond that, Chungwon has this very interesting conversation with his Komo and his Komobu, who he's never called Komobu, or his VP. And the aunt says, are you? I love how Chungwon here doesn't allow himself to get cornered or bullied by the VP as well. Because the VP says, "Well, dear, you know how your nephew likes to be clean, so he has her clean his car, he has her clean his office, he even has her clean her home." And then Chungwon puts down his utensils when they were having lunch, and he's like, "Yes, I have, she has been in my car, she's been in my office, she's even been in my home, but not for cleaning purposes." He's like, "She and I have other plans." And then the aunt's like, "Do these other plans include marriage?" And he's like, "No, no, no, certainly not me, and certainly not her." And he's like, "We're just," and then he kind of does this thing with his hand. He's like, "We're just interested in meaningless physical, contact." And so then the VP's like, "What?" And he knows he's totally misleading them. And he says, "Whatever you're thinking, it's way more shocking than what you're thinking." Again, misleading them. But yeah, he totally implies that something more is going on with them and all of this stuff. But anyway, there's this poignant scene between her and Kangwoo, Kongshit and Kangwoo at one point, where Kongshit has been made to feel very small next to Irang, the model, and so she had, she can't face Kangwoo because of that, embarrassment. Very embarrassed, and even that seems really cute because when she had gone up to hide next, like in front of Jungwon's office, she was all scrunched up, and Jungwon happened to see her, and he's like, "What's going on? Why are you up here?" And she's like, "사장님, I'm so embarrassed." And then he's like, "Well, I guess now, it's not that big a deal because you have you can experience shame and humiliation." And then she's like, "사장님, I just thought about it." She's like, "It's true. Now that I know I have a safe haven, I have the luxury of feeling humiliation." And it's really cute the way they all keep playing that touch game. But anyways, so the reason why I was talking about Kangwoo though is there's this one scene where Gongsil, because she feels very embarrassed in front of Kangwoo, tries to avoid him. But then he eventually talks to her, and he was telling her, don't feel embarrassed. And he says, I don't think the embarrassment is because she's so great and you're not. I think you were comparing yourself now with the Taegongsil of your past. And then he says, someone I really admire once told me, don't compete with your past self. Anticipate or look forward to your future self and love your present self, which seems like such a great adage and stuff. And Kongshil's like, that's such a great thing. And then Kangwoo confesses, he's like, yeah, I actually was a little bit intimidated by the Taegongsil of the past as well because you were so great then. But he's like, but I think it's important that we love ourselves now. Look forward to the future and love ourselves now, right? And then he kind of pulls her into the sidewalk. He holds her hand, yes, and then they walk home. And she's just, it's just this great moment where she finds validation and uplifting from someone like that. But the next evening is this charity event where they're supposed to be there, and the VP has arranged it so that he wants to basically create a lot of rumors and put his nephew in kind of a disadvantaged position. Well, Kongshi goes in, and then Jungwon sees her nicely dressed now in one of the charity event staff's uniform instead of the janitorial uniform. And he watches as Kongshi, makes her way to Idong's table because even though she doesn't like her old classmate, the ghost next to her is so freaky that she feels compelled out of human dignity, decency to tell her, right? And so she really tries, even though she's freaked out of her mind, to tell her, don't listen to the person who tells you you're the prettiest or that you need to be prettier. She's like, you're already pretty as you are. And then she runs away, right? Because the ghost is so scary. Well, Chujun kind of is so cute because he kind of allows her to bump into him. And then she's like, 사장님, what are you doing here? And he's like, the better question is, what are you doing here? He's like, it's natural that I would be here. This is my kingdom. And I love the play on words of the kingdom being his kingdom as well. The mall kingdom being his kingdom, metaphorically as well. But he says, what are you doing here? He's like, are you dressed like this because of Yeong, right? And she's like, oh no, I was asked to, help out. And then as she then, tells him, I've decided to love the current Taegongshi. And then she's like, I'm going to go and do my current job now. Before she excuses herself, though, he says, Taegongshi, and he's like, put on your radar. It's so cute, their little gestures. And then he's like, come follow me. I'm going to have you do some recruiting for me, or like scouting, right? And then it's so cute because she goes, beep, as she follows him, right? And then as he talks with her, and it was interesting because at the charity event, he was supposed to talk to two women, a Minister Kim's eldest daughter, and then I think some conglomerate group's third daughter or something like that, right? Because the Kumo wanted to see who would suit him best. He actually had talked with the Minister Kim's daughter, and Gongshi tells him that there's something next to that woman, and so Jungwon's like, oh, thank goodness, I wasted already 20 minutes of her. Ooh, that was a close call. And then he offers to give her this drink as a reward. He's like, you want one? It's really expensive. And she's like, oh no, you know what happens when I get alcohol in my system? And then she goes like this. She goes, "Rrr," and it's so cute. And then he's like, oh, you're right. We wouldn't want you to go, "Rrr." and then they start talking about Steve Jobs and how if they went to the States and they ended up, like having a glass of wine at Steve Jobs' house, whether she would be able to channel Steve Jobs and, just cute little things like that. But anyway, Chungwon says, hey, let's go, circle around the place and see what else we can find and what other spirits are next to whatever people, right? And then she goes, beep, and then she follows him around. Well, Kang-woo, who is there at the charity event, also overseeing all of the security detail, sees them interact. And you now know, and this is what was his saving grace this episode after his little, searching of her place, that despite his job or mission, he is starting to care for her, and that there's something about her that keeps pulling him towards her. So that was his saving grace. I was like, ugh. So just their interactions together are very sweet, whereas her interactions with Jungwon, it's just hilarious. It's charged. There's a lot of chemistry and what have you, right? Well, anyway, they go around and, she's showing him all the little ghosts or spirits that are next to other people and things like that. And then the secretary, Jungwon's secretary, says that the Giant Mall's CEO wants a private word with him before he joins the event, but that he's en route. And so Jungwon's like, oh, okay, good. And he's like, he doesn't know about my radars, my secret expensive radar. And so he takes her into his office. And that's when Kongshil makes the mistake and lies about how Hiju had told her to tell him that she was really sorry and, all this stuff. And Chungwon's like, don't lie to me. Hiju would never have said that. And then in anger, he, forces her out of his office. Well, as he's stewing and just waiting for the Giant Mall CEO, he learns from his secretary that there is a huge accident nearby and that the guy is just having a hard time getting to Kingdom, right? And then that's when Chungwon asks, so there were a lot of deaths? And the secretary was like, yes. That's what the breaking news is saying. And then Chungwon asks, was there a phone call on my cell phone? Because he had left it there. And Secretary Kim had brought it to him. And Secretary Kim's like, not that I know of, no, there wasn't any phone call. And so you see Chungwon's like fingers kind of start to get a little antsy. And then the next thing we see is Kongshil walking along the streets, kind of like that she's going to be seeing those spirits, and she knows it too. But it's kind of like this, she's unconsciously being pulled to that scene, even though she knows that she's going to be walking towards this huge accident. So she's at the crosswalk, and she's starting to see, above the bus, the overturned bus, the spirits start to rise from the bus. And as they come kind of towards her, you see her kind of like clenching her eyes, shut, because she's so afraid of what's about to come. And then that's when you see Jungwon's hand like twirl her, hand reach out on her shoulder, twirl her around, and then he kind of holds her to him. And it's so cute because, not cute, let's just say it's swoon worthy or, fangirl worthy, because he says, your safe haven or your refuge is here, hide. And then there's this great scene that the camera freezes on with him holding her and her just feeling very safe in his arms. So that was it. And I will say the story, in terms of the two lead characters, moves a little bit slowly. 1 was okay, 2 got a little better, 3 was good, 4 was awesome. I did a lot of internal squealing, especially with Jungwon and Taegong-shil's interactions together. Episode 5 looks even better, and you really start to see, or at least that's what the previews are alluding to, you really get to see Ju Jung-won start to care more about her, and then we certainly see Kang-woo come to the forefront and really show her that he's interested. Now, whether that interest is more missions related or whether he actually really genuinely starts to care about her, that remains to be seen at the point of episode 5. My suspicion is, though, regardless of whether he sees her as a means to his, end task, he's being pulled by her unconsciously. So I'm looking forward to seeing that as well. So thus far, I'm really liking The Master's Son. Those of you who follow me on Twitter, you may have heard or read a tweet from me squealing about how awesome those two guys were. I adore Taegongshi. She's so cute, like the Puss in Boots look. She's like, we just need to sleep on that couch. I mean, it's so adorable. And then there's also the whole thing about the two guys, and let's just say this is turning out to be quite the fun series for me. So, anyway, that is it. I think there were definitely a lot more poignant, um, pertinent points that I wanted to make, those that were a lot more intellectual than what I just got done expressing. I think maybe I can't remember if my blog post did any better, because I was so in squeal fangirl mode, but I will say I am liking their development. I think Kongshi is able to interact with Jungwon on a level that he hasn't allowed anyone to interact with. And she somehow taps into a certain part of him that wants to, not necessarily wants to, but is willing to help her out and such. So I look forward to seeing that and see how their relationship continues to develop. This is going to be it for this week. I am officially done. Actually, no, that's not true. Episode 5 and 6 airs tomorrow. I'm filming this on Tuesday, so you will probably see me again sometime Friday or Saturday with a recap of episode 5 and 6. So until then, I bid you good evening. All right, take care, everyone. Bye.